there are many kinds of death.
And some are better than others.
There's no discharge in the war.
28 years later is the latest horror flick to hit theaters. The film is directed by Danny Boyle, and this is, of course, the third entry into the Infected Zombie franchise, a franchise that goes all the way back to 2003 or 2002 if you live in the UK, with the film 28 Days Later. Now, 28 Days Later was also directed by Danny Boyle, and a lot of people said that it revitalized the zombie genre at the time. And that film did have a lot of zombies and action in the third act of that film, but the film primarily focused on the human emotional connection of the survivors throughout that film. And I really appreciated that while watching that movie. Thought it was great to watch a zombie apocalypse film, but focus in on the survivors instead of all of the zombies. And then, of course, because that movie made so much money on a very small budget, we received a sequel in 2007 called 28 Weeks Later, and 28 Weeks Later replaced the director and then tried to go bigger and bolder with the action and the zombie violence in that film. Not saying there wasn't any human emotions throughout that film. There's an emotional plot between a father and his daughters, but ultimately that film really tried to ramp up the gore, the bloodshed, it tried to ramp up the zombies, the action, and everything else took a back seat. And so now, all these years later, we receive the film 28 Years Later, a film that is once again directed by Danny Boyle, and a film that tries to get back to that human emotional connection between the survivors who are still trying to survive in this zombie apocalypse world 28 years later. Let's do the review.
Here we go.
That is one big pile of shit.
No, I shot him. Bullets in the fall killed him.
So 28 Years Later picks up with a group of survivors that are living on an island in the infected area. They have no way to get out. You find out that the rest of the world was able to fight the infection back to Great Britain. And basically, if you're there in that area, there is no getting out for you. No one will trust you to get you out. No one's going to come in to save you. You are just stuck in this area of infected zombies, and you got to find a way to survive. But they're not trying to rebuild like they were in 28 Weeks Later. And so this film focuses in on a community that found this little island to live on, where there's a tide that pretty much washes away the ability for zombies to get in there, and so they feel safe where they're at. But they still have to go out, they have to hunt not only zombies, but they have to hunt for food, they have to forage for items, and so every once in a while they'll send out some hunters. And that's where this film focuses in on a family, and this family is comprised of Aaron Taylor Johnson as the dad named Jamie, Jodie Comer as the mother named Isla, and Alfie Williams as the kid named Spike. And Spike has turned 12, and he and his father are going to go out for the very first time onto the mainland, and they're going to hunt some zombies. Spike's going to learn how to hunt these things with a bow and arrow with his dad. And you also find out at the time that Isla, the mom of this family, is very sick. They don't know what it's from, but she has a lot of memory loss. She forgets that Spike isn't a young kid anymore. So Spike and his dad, Jamie, go out to the mainland. They hunt some zombies, and that is where we, the audience, are introduced to a new type of zombie called alphas. And alphas lead packs of these infected zombies, and the alphas, they don't go down with one arrow. You're going to have to take them down with multiple arrows. And while they're on the mainland, Spike and Jamie end up running into a pack of these infected zombies controlled by one of these alphas, and they just barely make it back to their village alive. Now, with all of that said, while that's going on, Spike saw some fire in the distance, and he found out that there's a doctor who some people call a madman, played by Ralph Fiennes, that's living on the mainland. And Spike, wanting to find out answers for his mom, wanting his mom to be safe, takes his mom out of this community, takes her to the mainland to look for this doctor. And that's pretty much where the plot goes from there. Spike and his mom trying to survive this zombie-infected mainland, looking for a doctor, looking for answers to what the mom has wrong with her. And that is the best synopsis that I can give you for 28 Years Later. If that sounds like a fun time at the theater, well, it is playing now, and you should go check this out on a really big screen. screen. Now, I am going to get into my positives and my negatives for 28 years later here in a second, but before I do that, if this is the first time you found my channel, well, would love for you guys to hit that subscribe button, check out all the different content on my channel, whether you like movie reviews, Blu-ray talk, or ranked list videos. I've got a little bit of everything on my channel, and I'd love for you guys to check it out. All right, let's get into my positives and my negatives for 28 years later. My first positive for this movie is going to be the acting all around. You've got some great actors from the people I already mentioned. Jodie Comer stands out in this film so much. She, of course, was in The Bike Riders very recently, and then a few years ago was in my favorite film of 2021, in The Last Duel. I loved that film. Her performance was great in that film, and it seems like anything she pops up in, she's going to give a great performance because she does it again here. Aaron Taylor Johnson as the protective dad in this family, wanting to keep his family safe, was great in this film. I wish we would have gotten a little bit more of him versus the infected. There are going to be sequels down the road, so I'm hoping we get a little bit more of his character of Jamie in the future. Alfie Williams is a great child actor, did a great job in this role as someone who's becoming a man in this zombie infected world. He's learning how to take care of the people around him, learning how to kill the infected as he goes, but he also has this heart of gold for his mother and the people around him that so many people seem to be lacking in this zombie infected wasteland. Maybe that was just burned out of them years ago and he's a young kid with ambition, but he wants to take care of the people around him, specifically his mom. I bought his character the entire time as well. And then Ralph Fiennes does a great job showing up in this film as the maybe crazy doctor living on the mainland who has built an entire temple of bones, and since the next film in this franchise is going to be called 28 Years Later Bone Temple, well, you know his character is going to come back into it, and that Bone Temple is going to be very important. And again, he gives a great performance in this film as well. My next positive is going to be the story of this film. This film feels fresh, like a fresh entry into this genre. Of course, in the first film, it was easy because it was only 28 days. People were still trying to figure stuff out, so the survivors just had to survive, and that was your movie. In 28 weeks later, you had the army coming in, trying to control this thing, trying to kill all the infected, and of course it all goes to hell. But in 28 years later, people have been living with this for 28 years, and so they're able to craft a story about these survivors where sometimes it may seem like they're being harsh, that they don't have the heart or the compassion for people, that they go with their rules first and foremost. Like at one point when Jamie and Spike are trying to get back into the village where they'll be safe, they make them show all of their eyes to them before they'll let them in to make sure that they're not infected. And that may seem heartless, but that's because that's what these people have been living with for 28 years. But again, the story feels fresh because it goes in another direction. It shows that human emotional connection like the first film did, this time between a son and his love for his mother, just wanting his mother to be better. And so he takes her out, he takes her to Ralph Fiennes' character, and they have an incredibly emotional moment towards the end of this film that made me tear up in the theater. It was that emotional, and it worked for me on every level. The cinematography in this movie has to be my next positive because it is a beautiful movie to look at, which is not something you can usually say about a Danny Boyle film, usually because he makes them for very low budgets, but I feel like he likes that gritty feeling in his movies. One of my negatives from the first film was that the whole film was a little too gritty for me, but in this film, there are some grittier moments. You could tell he went back to that style for a few scenes in this film, but overall, the cinematography, the sets, they're gorgeous. There is a scene in this film where a couple of the survivors happen upon a train where some stuff is going down. I won't spoil what's going on in that train, but just the outside of it looked so real and looked so just decrepit and gross, and you have to walk into this train car where something is screaming, and I thought they did such a good job with that set. But overall, the cinematography in this movie, whether they're going from the mainland back to the village and they've got the water coming in, or just the look of the zombies in this film, it looks beautiful. And my understanding is they shot this on, like, I don't know, 100 iPhones or something. I don't know why they chose to do it that way, but the cinematography is beautiful because of it. And my final positive for this movie is going to be the gory, infested zombies that you get throughout this film. Yeah, you get a lot of the crazier zombies who are just flailing their arms around, going after you, trying to bite whatever they can, but you get the alphas in this film, and the alphas are terrifying. There's a couple of scenes throughout this film where they sort of show you how terrifying these things can be, and they show you in different ways. So in one film, this is in one of the trailers, there's a bunch of soldiers in a tunnel, and one of the alphas comes out of nowhere and just starts ripping them apart. But there's another scene where they show the dominance of these alphas by just having one stand on a hill waiting for the survivors to come out of their hiding places. You find out in that moment that these aren't like your normal infected zombies that are just running around crazy looking for anything to eat. These things will stand on a hill all day if they need to, just waiting for you to come out. I thought they did a great job with the zombies yet again in this film, the gore, the blood, and even some of the action scenes where you get the arrows through the head. I don't know what that's about, but anytime there was a headshot to a zombie, this thing looked so cool. They slowed it down for just a second as the arrow would go through their head. It was great to see. That's something I would love to rewatch in the future. And that'll lead me over to my negatives, and I really only have one negative for this film. And yeah, if you've been following any of the controversy or the talk about this movie online, then you probably know where I'm going with this negative, because it's the last 5 minutes, just like everybody else. But I'm going to get into specifics on this negative, and I feel like I have to get into some spoilery territory to get to those specifics, so I'm just letting you know a few spoilers ahead. So to get into this negative, you have the character of Spike, who's now living on his own 28 days after the events of this film. This director loves the number 28. But anyway, you get this kid who's like 12 years old, living on the mainland by himself. He's cooking a fish. These zombies start to come at him. He starts taking them out with arrows until he runs out. He goes on the run. These zombies start to surround him. And that's when this character of Jimmy comes onto the screen. Now, Jimmy's actually a character you saw in the opening portion of this film, but it's been 28 years, so Jimmy is now a grown-up man wearing this very colorful tracksuit, long slick back blonde hair, and he has a bunch of chains around his neck, and he says, looks like you could use some help. And that's when a bunch of other guys in very colorful tracksuits come out with long slick back blonde hair and chains on their neck, have nunchucks, pipes, all kinds of weapons. They jump down and they kung fu their way through these zombies. They take them out very quickly. It's really not a problem for them. Kill them all fast. And it's not the tonal shift that is my negative. It is a weird tonal shift. You went from having this very dark, emotional, brooding film about a son's love for his mother, willing to do anything for that, and then it turns into this kung fu ninja cartoonish moment. And that is a bit jarring, but that's not my negative. My negative from this comes from who these tracksuit wearing guys are supposed to represent. And they're supposed to represent somebody named Jimmy Savile. Now, if you don't know, Jimmy Savile was a real life person in the UK who was a huge superstar in the UK pop culture back in 2002. And so the idea of this film is that since their world ended for them in 2002, he's still this pop culture icon. And so that's why all of these guys are wearing these tracksuits like he would wear. They have slick back blonde hair like he would wear, and a bunch of chains. They're trying to emulate him. But the real life Jimmy Savile died in the year 2011, and when he died, it came out that he had hurt and molested hundreds of children over the past 50 years and was one of the worst people that ever existed ever. Now, what the movie is trying to say is that, well, since their pop culture ended in 2002, they don't know that horrible, disgusting secret about this guy. And so they come down as heroes dressed in these colorful tracksuits. And I get what the movie is saying, but for me, knowing the real Jimmy Savile was an absolute monster towards children, that just absolutely kills my love for this film. Showing them as the hero, emulating this absolute child predator, it's disgusting any way you slice it. Yeah, these people don't know, but it's 2025 and in real life we do know. Why would I ever want to see that sort of a monster given any sort of a platform outside of, hey, he was a dirty, despicable monster that hopefully is burning in hell? Like, I don't understand why they thought, oh yeah, we'll do that because the pop culture reference and everybody will be cool with it. I'm not. That's not okay. We shouldn't give predators a platform at all. Unless it's going to be a Netflix docuseries where they're going to show how much of a monster this guy is. That's it. Otherwise, we really shouldn't give a platform to this monster. Now, the only thing I'll say is that if in future installments they make these bands of Jimmy Savile lookalikes bad guys, horrible people, people that meet a very disgusting fate, they all die horribly, then maybe I'll forgive this. But as of right now, this is my only negative of this film, is just this weird, not needed tracksuit moment in this film. Oh, it's going to set up the future. Find a different way to set up the future. Oh, you don't understand UK pop culture. If that's UK pop culture, UK needs to fix some things because that's absolutely disgusting. I'm not into that. Or you have people saying, oh, well, you don't understand the Teletubbies reference at the beginning shows that Jimmy was sort of locked into UK pop culture at the time, or Spike playing with the Power Rangers showed that he was looking for a very colorful superhero down the line. So this all just sort of meshes together. Again, I understand the symbolism, but if you're going to emulate a massive child predator, I don't want anything to do with your movie. So overall, would I recommend this movie to people? That's a very difficult thing to answer because on the one hand, yes, 98% of this movie is fantastic, a very well-made film, a great entry into this franchise in my own personal opinion, but that last 5 minutes really kills my joy of this film. So I'm going to say that if you're a massive fan of the franchise and you know what you know, go watch this movie. But I tell you, when you get to the last like 5 minutes, you can leave and you'd have a better day for it. But with all that said, though, guys, those are just my opinions because that's my review for 28 years later. Have you guys had a chance to see this film? Have you seen that crazy ending? Did it bother you? Did it not bother you? Now that you may know a little bit more of who these people were trying to emulate, does that bother you? I'm just curious your thoughts in those comment section down below. And finally, guys, if you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button because it helps the video, it helps the channel, and it helps me right here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Oh, got a microphone now. Yeah. All right, guys, we got to the end of my 28 years later review. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I had a blast making it. I also reviewed the other 2 films in this franchise very recently. So if you want to see all my thoughts for this franchise, well, I've got the whole franchise review series right there. And I've got all of my 2025 movie reviews right there.